There are many memorable moments during the holidays, and those memorable moments are even better when they're centered around a honey-baked ham. Whether that looks like sneaking a slice of our signature bone-and-half ham with that irresistible sweet crunchy glaze before you serve it to guests, hosting family and friends for the first time and wowing them with our new tender and juicy prime rib, or having a solo midnight snack of double cheddar mac and cheese and green bean casserole. There's no wrong way to holiday with the people you love most, because every bite is a celebration with the Honey-Baked Ham Company.
Meet the computer you can talk to. With Copilot on Windows, working, creating, and collaborating is as easy as talking. Got writer's block? Share your screen with Copilot Vision to help spark inspiration, and use Copilot Voice to have a conversation and brainstorm ideas. Or maybe you need some tech help. With Copilot Vision, Copilot sees what you see. Let Copilot talk you through step-by-step guidance so you can master new apps, games, and skills faster. Try now at windows.com/Copilot.
Hello, and thank you for listening to The History of World War II podcast, episode 590, The American Landings on Sicily. Last time, despite high winds and rough seas, the British airborne troops and then regular forces landed along the southeastern corner of Sicily. And now it was the Americans' turn, along the southern coast. But those same weather conditions would treat the GIs much more harshly. Had the Axis planned to fight on the beaches proper, the haphazard landings of the Americans could have resulted in many Allied deaths. As it was, the American landings, hampered by the weather and unknown geographic details such as land bars, were canceled out by the haphazard Axis response. The Americans made up 3 of the 7 Allied divisions coming ashore, matching the 3 of the British and 1 Canadian division. This made Husky the largest amphibious landing in history, as for putting troops on shore in one day. Cent Force, representing the American right flank closest to the British landings, would have 2 separate landings on either side of the town Scoglitti, about 7 miles apart. The reason for this was to put men on shore near the 2 airfields, Biscari and Comiso, further inland. Problem was, both beaches selected for the landings had soft sand, far from ideal. But even before that, Rear Admiral Kirk, the Cent Force naval commander, delayed the landings an hour, hoping the seas would calm more. They would not. At 3:34 a.m., just before H hour, Italian coastal batteries opened up on the assembled craft. The USS Philadelphia returned fire, as did the HMS Abercrombie, along with other ships. With those Italian guns silenced, the GIs started coming ashore. To the left of Scoglitti, or rather to the northwest, given the relative coastline, the 179th Regimental Combat Team came ashore on the Cent yellow and green beaches. To the right of Scoglitti, the 157th Combat Team landed on yellow 2 and green 2 beaches. Not that all these men made it ashore. Several landing craft were raised and then dropped by large waves, forcing the men to fall over. 38 men drowned from this alone. Others disembarked in the water still too deep and went under due to the weight of their gear. They never resurfaced. As for the 180th Combat Team that was also to have landed northwest of Scoglitti, the landing craft ensigns were so panicked by the surf they kept moving west to find calmer water, and eventually ended up putting the men ashore 3 miles further away. This was because half of the landing craft ensigns who had practiced were switched out, with those who had just finished basic training, and these scattered landings delayed getting organized and getting off of the beach. Again, had the Italians had plans to hit the Americans hard while still on the beach, it could have gone very badly for the GIs. Again, no Axis infantry had come at the GIs yet, though the Italian batteries had fired on the landing craft, until they, in their turn, were fired upon. At 4:30 a.m., the Axis air arm, such as it was, joined the fight. A squadron of torpedo bombers from Sardinia and 13 high-altitude bombers from Perugia attacked the ships berthing these landings, but they all missed and were driven off by AA fire. Meanwhile, the Italian manned beach defenses were neutralized. Those troops were either killed or captured. By 6 a.m., most of the 1st Battalion was on the shore, again to the left of Scaglietti, about 3,000 men. As such, they were ready to push on to the airfield at Biscari. Yet they soon ran into Italian defensive troops who quickly raised their hands in surrender. A POW camp was hastily put together near the beach and started filling up with Axis soldiers, mostly Italians. With the Cent Force beaches in Allied hands, Admiral Kirk tried to start landing heavier equipment, but this proved impossible. The sand was just too soft. Around noon, July 10th, Kirk gave up trying. To the west of Scaglietti, the beach designated Woods Hole was hardly any better, with just one spot being adequate for landing equipment. The good news was that the men were getting ashore, ugly as the process was. The bad news, there were now about 200 landing craft in this area, scattered, battered, and bruised. The landing craft mechanized, or LCMs, had to split their time, again a priceless commodity, between bringing men and equipment ashore and towing out damaged or half-sunk landing craft away from the soft sands. But taking a moment away from the courage and sacrifice of these men, along the beaches, some of the men of the Army engineers who were rejected from combat units were found going through their comrades' personal effects, looking for valuables. A second kind of prisoner camp had to be set up for these men. At 8:30 a.m., Cent's Division Commander, Major General Troy C. Middleton, came ashore with his staff. As his headquarters was set up, the nearby Italian coastal towns started to fall to the Americans. Scaglietti itself was taken at 2 p.m. The men who landed to the right of Scaglietti took San Cruz and nearby Camarina at 2:45 p.m. Further inland, about 5 miles from shore and to the northeast of San Cruz, Donna Fugata was taken by 5:15 p.m. Thus, the area to the right of Scaglietti, where the GIs came ashore, was now in Allied hands.
Marshall's buyers are hustling hard to get amazing new gifts into stores, right up to the last minute. Like a designer perfume for that friend who never RSVP'd, wish list topping toys for her kids who came too, Belgian chocolates for the neighbor, a cozy scarf for your boss, and a wool jacket for your husband that you definitely did not almost forget. Marshalls, we get the deals, you get the good stuff, even at the last minute. Whew. Find a Marshalls near you.
Meanwhile, the 1st U.S. Infantry Division, the Big Red One, making up most of the forces coming ashore around Gela, had a relatively easier time. Rear Admiral Hall was in charge of these landings, designated Dime, the American Center Force, and he strove mightily to be on time with his landings. Fortunately for him, or rather the men going ashore, much like at the Cent beaches, the Allied intelligence here got it right in saying that the Italians did not lay any mines along the southern coast. Still, the landing craft started operations about 30 minutes late. The LCIs, landing craft infantry, and LSTs, landing ship tanks, started about 2 hours late. Here, the geography dictated the assault plan. As there were 2 cliffs to the west of Gela, Manfria and Cape Soprano, with gun batteries atop each one, the attack would have to come right at the coastal city Gela, or rather, that is what the Americans hoped the Italians would believe. Forces would land just east of the mouth of the Gela River, itself just east of the city, and they would make for the airfield at Ponte Olivo, just behind Gela by about 6 miles. There was to be a diversionary attack right at the city, hoping to get the Italians' attention. This diversionary attack would be conducted by the 1st and 4th Ranger Battalions, and they would land to either side of the steel pier that jutted out from Gela into the sea. These pier landings were designated green and red beaches. But as the 1st and 4th Rangers came in close to the pier, the Italians detonated explosives attached to it. Suddenly, there was a large gap in the pier, as in, if they tried to land vehicles on the end of the pier, they would be stuck there, which was not the only problem. As with the scent force landings, some of the landing craft floundered in the high waves. Now, not being able to utilize the pier, the Rangers were put ashore right in the middle of a minefield. But these were not the only threats. One company lost an entire platoon as they tried to advance in between two unseen pillboxes. The rest of the company, seen red with anger, were led by their wounded first sergeant in capturing these pillboxes. Meanwhile, the other three companies fought their way into the city Gela proper. With the immediate threat removed, leaving aside those batteries on the cliffs, infantry and a motorized chemical battalion with 4.2-inch mortars came ashore. As for the Italian coastal guns, all but one of those were soon put out of action by Allied naval bombardment. The last would keep firing until that afternoon. Still, this allowed the main landings to commence on yellow, blue, red 2, and green 2 beaches, again just east of Gela. Yet the beaches here were heavily mined, so soon the dime forces lost several bulldozers, trucks, and ducks. That is, a 6-wheeled drive amphibious vehicle, first used here during Husky. Though called ducks, as they were meant to transport men and equipment over land and water, the D was for the production series, 1942, the U for utility, as in amphibious, the K for all-wheel drive, and the W for dual rear axles. The duck was 31 feet long, had a crew of 1, and could carry 5,000 pounds, or 24 troops. During D-Day, 1944, it would ferry supplies across the English Channel. One more nugget of information about the duck: it had been rejected by the armed services, but when a U.S. Coast Guard patrol craft ran aground on a sandbar in Massachusetts, a prototype duck just happened to be in the area, readying for a demonstration. Not helping the stuck Coast Guard vessel was winds up to 60 knots, heavy rain, not to mention an intense surf. The duck was called upon as there was nothing to lose, and it had no trouble navigating through the environment. The armed services, witnessing this, chagrined, placed an order. Sometimes seeing is believing. Back to Husky. At 4:40 a.m., like at scent, the Axis air attacks began around dime. At 5 a.m., the destroyer USS Maddox was sunk by a Ju-88. One dropped bomb hit the ship's ammunition magazine. The USS Sentinel, a minesweeper, was also lost. Still, the town of Gela was taken by 8 a.m. by the Rangers, clearing the way for the division to move further inland, which is when the Axis ground troops struck. The 33rd Regiment of the Italian Livorno Division, augmented with the Panzer Regiment of the Hermann Goering Division, was activated and began heading towards Gela. Meanwhile, a closer threat, the Italian Gruppo Mobile E of 16th Corps, leaving Ponte Olvillo, the airfield, also headed towards Gela. Within this group were 32 French-captured 10-ton Renault 35 light tanks, 16 3-ton light tanks, and a few units with World War I-era Fiat machine guns. As this Gruppo Mobile E arrived first, the Rangers in the town were stymied, as they had no anti-tank weapons yet. Their tanks were still being unloaded, and once the Axis tanks entered Gela proper, the Allied air arm nor the Navy's guns could do anything about it. All the Rangers and the soldiers had were bazookas, grenades, and small arms. Still, these were used in coordinated attacks, and though few tanks were actually taken out, the Italians inside of them were harassed into leaving the town, and once outside of the borders of the town, they were set upon by naval gunfire coming from the HMS Abercrombie, USS Boise, Jeffers, and Shubrick. Then came the bigger threat of the Hermann Goering Panzer Regiment with 2 infantry battalions and Tiger tanks of the Panzer Abteilung 215. They, in 2 groups, came at Gela from the north and northwest. In their way was the 1st and 2nd Battalions of the 16th Infantry and a mixed bag of paratroopers. But the defenders had an ace up their sleeve, or rather, at their backs: the naval guns of the escorts. The ship's guns opened up and drove the Germans back. But this was not enough. Clearly, someone had eyes on the Allied forces at Gela and was directing counterattacks. This was soon figured out to be at Nesemi, about 8 miles inland. Not only was there an observation tower there, but it was the enemy's nearest headquarters. Vice Admiral Hewitt, commander of the Western Naval Task Force, had ordered HMS Abercrombie to help Cent, and her first mission was to neutralize the Italian headquarters at Nesemi, which is when Captain Faulkner of the Abercrombie did a little outside-of-the-box thinking. Wanting to give his guns as much range as possible, he had the ballast of his ship shifted, thus elevating its 15-inch guns. This obviously worked, as later, when the headquarters was approached by infantry, it had been found completely destroyed. Meanwhile, to the left or west of Dyme was the beaches labeled Josh, the American third and final landing, and its left flank. This is where General Truscott's 3rd Infantry Division, supported by the Combat Command A of the 2nd Armored Division, would come ashore. The ships carrying these forces had left Bizerta on July 7th. The headquarters ship, the USS Biscayne, dropped anchor at 1:35 a.m., July 10th. At 2 a.m., firing from Gela to the east could be heard. This caused Italian searchlights here on the cliffs around Josh to activate, and they started scanning the waters along the coast. Rear Admiral Connolly readied to fire his guns on those lights, but waited at the last second. Just because lights seemed to have his and other ships lit up did not automatically mean that they had been spotted from land. Connolly held the order to fire for 10 minutes. Just as he was about to order fire, the searchlights went out. Apparently, the growing Allied armada here had not been spotted. By 3:40 a.m., the landing craft were reaching shore. That is, some of them. 4 landing points had been designated, 2 to the west of Licata, the objective, red and green, and 2 to the east, yellow and blue. All but green, immediately west of Licata, had reported in. Getting nervous about green, Truscott ordered 2 Cub aircraft to be ready to take off to see what was going on. Those Cubs were sent up, and soon GIs were spotted on Green Beach, still climbing the cliffs before them. Something must have happened to delay them, but they were on land, and they were moving. On Red Beach, the furthest west of Licata, the 1st Battalion of the 7th Infantry Regiment came ashore at 4 a.m. Not spotted by the enemy, the battalion crossed the beach and started climbing, which is when machine gun fire came at them. Fortunately, the cliffs were anything but smooth, giving the men grooves to hide in as they climbed. It took another hour, but soon their beach was cleared of enemy units. Then the battalion moved inland about a mile to the rendezvous point. The other 2 battalions from the regiment followed, but their vehicles were held up by soft sand and enemy artillery fire. Worse, a 47mm gun was somehow missed on the beach, and it now opened up, taking out 2 LCTs, landing craft tank. Smoke was put out to cover the surviving GIs. Meanwhile, the Navy used its nearby guns to silence this Italian threat. This allowed the 1st Field and armored artillery guns to come ashore at 6:30 a.m. Once they set up, the infantry in front of them had additional cover, while a company of tanks followed at 9 a.m. On Green Beach, immediately west of Licata, the 3rd Ranger Battalion had landed at 3 a.m. Like the others at first, they were not seen. The Rangers here crossed the beach and worked their way through a strong line of barbed wire, which is when they were fired upon by machine guns. The Rangers went down, hoping the soft sand would absorb the approaching bullets and not ricochet, causing harm. The sand was on the Allies' side. But having fired on the Rangers, the Italian machine gun units gave away their positions. Now knowing where the threat was coming from, while some of the Rangers kept the enemy's attention on them, others swung around to the flanks. The Italian machine guns were soon silenced. Now the 2nd Battalion of the 15th Infantry Regiment combat team came ashore. Some of these men stayed along the coast, but pushed to the east, towards Licata. Passing through Monte Sol, the Americans occupied Castle Sant'Angelo, a fort built there in the late 1500s, just west of Licata, and there the GIs raised the American flag at 7:35 a.m.
Chronic spontaneous urticaria, or chronic hives with no known cause. It's so unpredictable. It's like playing pinball. Itchy, red bumps start on my arm, then my back. Sometimes my legs. Hives come out of nowhere. And it comes and goes. But I just found out about a treatment option at treatmyhives.com. Take that, chronic hives. Learn more at treatmyhives.com.
The defenders in and around Licata had just been put on notice by the flag, and per the plan, a few hours of naval bombardment on the town forced its surrender at 11:35 a.m. At Yellow Beach, just east of Licata, 3rd Battalion of the 15th Infantry had come ashore at 3:45 a.m., meeting them with small arms fire. The 3rd Battalion pushed through this, and they rushed ashore. The enemy was close enough that naval guns could not be used, but the defenders quickly melted away as more Allied soldiers came ashore. Now on shore and safe from any immediate threat, the men moved along Highway 123 and reached Licata at 11:30 a.m., roughly at the same time as the 1st Battalion reached the city from the north and the 2nd Battalion from the west. A planning staff's daydream, which leaves Blue Beach the furthest eastern landing of the Josh landings. These men were of the 2nd Battalion of the 30th Infantry Regiment who came ashore at 3:30 a.m. When first coming ashore, they achieved tactical surprise, but then, when discovered, gave better than they got. The men spread out and came upon pillboxes. Fortunately, most of these pillboxes were discovered by the GIs before the machine guns inside the pillboxes could find the Americans. Having drilled very hard for this, 10-man teams each were assigned to various pillboxes, taking them out with distractions and grenades. The GIs that pushed to the east came upon the stronghold Poggio Lugno, but it was not strong enough, and by 8:45 a.m., it was the Americans holding it. At 11 a.m., all the points in between the various American landings were reconnaissanced, and enemy troops within were captured. Now the 7th Infantry was safe to bring in vehicles and equipment on shore. General Truscott came ashore at Yellow Beach and then moved his headquarters just north of Licata. By evening, the Joss forces had created a bridgehead of 8 by 15 miles with more equipment and reinforcements still coming ashore. Having said that, the Axis forces were already on the move. Yes, the Allies were on shore and had suffered little, relatively speaking. In overall command on Sicily, at least on paper, was General Guzzoni, who had known by July 9th that Sicily was the next Allied target. But where exactly would they land? Well, by now he knew, and he was ready to deploy his forces. Thus, orders were sent out. The question was, would the Germans follow these orders or decide for themselves how to best combat the Allies' latest move? Greetings, everyone, from Central Virginia. So anyways, I know next week is Christmas. I'll probably still put out one episode, regular episode, and one membership episode. I mean, you don't want to spend the entire week with your family, right? Come on, who does, you know? It gets old. No, I'm joking. But I'm just saying if you happen to be driving and you want something to listen to, just know that at some point next week, there'll be some episodes for you to do just that. Anyway, so I would like to thank my latest members. Let's see here. Mark Bokelman from Colorado. Thank you very much, Mark. Lou Berman from Ambler, Pennsylvania. Thank you, Lou. Let's see here. Michael Whittle from California. So those are the latest members. And the series that I'm doing now is getting good because what it is they're trying to get specialized Swedish metals from Sweden to the UK because it helps with aircraft and tank production. The first time they did it, they got through fine because they surprised the Germans. The second time, they're trying it again, but the Germans are ready. It's not going to go as smoothly, but you've got to admire them for trying. So anyways, let's see here. Credit-Kath Hach from Houston, Texas. I hope I'm saying that right, Kath, has earned a producer credit. Thank you very much. And as always, of course, executive producer Andrew Grossman from Astoria, New York. He gets credit as well because he signed up for it, and I really, really, really do appreciate it, Andrew. And so I hope everybody has a safe and wonderful Christmas. Spend time with friends or family, whatever's important to you. And so when the holidays are over, when you come back, I'll be here waiting for you. Take care, everyone.